Hello, good evening, welcome back to my channel. My name is Julie. Tonight we're going to continue on reading our book, The Way of the Warrior. I'm really enjoying this book. In fact, I highlighted some parts of our last read that I want to share with you tonight, just to kind of recap what we read yesterday. Yesterday we read about invisible leadership. And what we read about yesterday was a man who, I'll give you the little recap. I also saw under the sun this example of wisdom that greatly impressed me. There was once a small city with only a few people in it, and a powerful king came against it, surrounded it, and built a huge siege works against it. Now there lived in that city a poor man, but he was wise, and he saved the city by his wisdom. But nobody remembered that poor man. So I said, wisdom is better than strength, but the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are no longer heeded. The quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. So in the part of the book that we read yesterday, Invisible Leadership, we were focusing on this poor man who had nothing, but he saved a whole city just based on his wisdom, okay? And so some of the key areas that stuck out to me in our read yesterday was, but this man had nothing available to him, no wealth, no power, no status, no weapons, no army. Only wisdom was available to him, and he saved his city by his wisdom. What's the point of winning a fight if you lose the person? When you love someone, the real fight is to keep winning that person. Solomon saw from this moment that wisdom is better than the weapons of war, though it was equally clear to him that wisdom brings no promise of fame, recognition, or even respect. Never lack your resources. Never let the lack of your resources justify your lack of ambition. Never allow the measure of your wealth to be the measure of your life. The warrior never fights for themselves. They fight only for others. This part really got me. It got me thinking. So I highlighted it. In fact, when I was reading it yesterday, I even had to stop and look into the air and be like, that might be me. It may seem completely counterintuitive, but in my experience, depressed people are least likely to be willing to change any of their life patterns. In other words, people who hate their lives are the least likely to change them. Now, I don't hate my life, but I do deal with depression. And it made me think, am I willing to change any of my life patterns because of this depression? So it's really getting me to think about my own life and my own course and how I carry myself going forward. But this poor man who was wise, for this man who had set his entire city free, to be known seemed unimportant. This man didn't want to be known. He wasn't looking for fame. He just was happy with his wisdom, happy that he saved the city, and he was never heard of again. And we must ask ourselves, do we seek to be known more than to be worth knowing? So those were some key highlights that we read yesterday that stuck out to me, that I highlighted, that I wanted to kind of share with you, and also to recap in case, just to catch everyone up from where we left off. Okay, so tonight we're going to start reading about keeping our edge. Keep your edge. I don't know how far I'm going to go because we're almost done with Code 2, Chapter 2. We have a few pages left of this section, and then we go into Code 3, The Warrior Finds Honor in Service. So I might go into Code 3 tonight. We'll see how my reading is. Sometimes I can read pretty flowy, and other times I stumble over my words, so we'll just see how we do tonight. Let me take a little sip of my, I made coffee. I know it's late, but I made coffee just so I wouldn't get too sleepy for my book read tonight. I had to wait for my husband to go to sleep. I was waiting until he went to bed so I could have some alone time. So I made some coffee while I was waiting. but hopefully this coffee won't keep me up too late. Okay, so keep your edge. Let's start. Years ago, I took my turn at being a lumberjack. In my 20s, when I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, I tried an endless number of jobs, but most of them were just for the simple purpose of paying the bills. So, as a lumberjack, I traveled with a crew to the mountains of Virginia to cut down giant trees in a section of the woods that needed to be cleared. It was an ideal scenario because the government needed free labor to clear the land. We could sell the lumber and clear significant profits for our work. I've never liked being paid by the hour. I've always been drawn to opportunities where my income is not limited by my willingness to work harder than everyone else. When you are being paid not by the hour, but by the pound, there is no time to waste. When you are a novice, you cut away at the tree, never taking the time to pull back and sharpen the axe's edge. Frankly, when you are inexperienced, you don't even notice that the edge has become dull. You do notice that the tree becomes denser and every inch of progress becomes harder and harder. If you're not paying attention, you'll simply think that you're losing strength, or in some strange way, the tree is gaining strength. It takes a more seasoned lumberjack to make you aware that you are increasing your effort by decreasing your results. The fool just keeps striking and striking without paying attention to the quality of the edge. The wise know that if the edge is unsharpened, more strength is needed. The warrior understands that behind one strike of their sword are 10,000 hours in which they have wielded their sword without an enemy present. It is no different in life, that we are not pulling back bows or swinging swords or carrying weapons of conventional battle. Every life is a series of battle, of conflicts, of wars, and of course the war we speak of is the one that rages within. You cannot win the battle for your soul if you choose to live the life of a fool, neglecting the health of your soul and not taking time to refine who you are. The battle may look different for each of us, but the battle line is the same. It is at the intersection of our passions and desires. Solomon tells us to love wisdom. He knows that in the end we become what we love. We do not become fools because we lack the right information. We become fools because we love the wrong things. The only way you can care for your soul is to nurture your love for what is good and beautiful and true. Solomon also tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Why is the fear of God the starting point on the path towards wisdom? To begin with, what you fear has mastery over your life. If you fear only God, then He becomes your only master. What you fear also establishes the boundaries of your freedom. If you are afraid of heights, I am. You stay low, I do. If you are afraid of crowds, you stay alone, I do. Fear limits your freedom except when it comes to God. Scripture tells us that perfect love casts out fear. When we fear God and God alone, our fear is consumed in His perfect love. It is only when we love Him that His love casts out all our fear. So when we love our Lord our God with all our hearts and souls and strength and minds, fear no longer has power over our lives. We are finally and most beautifully free. In summary, if you want to stop being a fool, stop loving the wrong things. Have you ever noticed that fools always fall in love with the wrong people? Second, realize that you were designed for God and that the health of your soul can come only by embracing His love for you. Third, recognize that the health of your soul is also an outgrowth of your love for God. Fourth, feel the passion of your heart for all that is good and beautiful and true. And finally, take the time necessary to nurture your desires and passions so that they reflect the heart of God Himself. Solomon's imagery in unsharpened axe is his way of reminding us that wisdom has the advantage of setting us up for success. The warrior spends their time refining their art, their craft, and their life. While maintaining a posture of humility, there is a continuous pursuit of excellence. The warrior understands that every manifestation of greatness has hidden behind it a life of discipline, determination, and persistence. For the warrior, the beauty is in the details. As important as it is to watch the tree fall, it is important to see the edge sharpened. The axe matters to the warrior. The axe is not what you have, but who you are. If wisdom is the weapon, then your character is the edge. You cannot fight the great battles that will come before you if you have not chosen to fight the battle within you. Solomon's father once told him that as iron sharpens iron, so one sharpens another. You cannot be made better than you are if you choose to live your life with those who would settle for less. If you are comfortable with where you are, you will never know how far you can go. If you refuse to change, then you refuse to grow. Wisdom comes from the pain of critique and sometimes comes through the wounds of criticism. As when iron sharpens iron, wisdom comes only from with friction and fire. The skills for life that Solomon speaks of come in the everyday decisions that will be mostly unnoticed. The choices we make that help us become the people we are, the choices that shape our character, the choices that create our future. Wisdom understands that choices have momentum. Wisdom understands that choices are our power. You must never forget that there is no more spiritual act than to choose. Before you swing your axe, choose your tree. Decide what your life is about. Decide what is worth living for. Find your intention. And no matter what may come, no matter what battles ensue, never relinquish your intention. The fool swings mindlessly and chops once at every tree that stands in front of them. The warrior understands that not every battle is theirs, and that not every tree is meant for them. When you take your axe, choose your tree and keep striking until that tree has fallen. When you move with wisdom, you know your strength. You see when certain choices make you dull and when other choices make you sharp. There is nothing more debilitating than giving your strength to the wrong thing. When you live your life without intention, you make your edge dull. When you live a life of obligation, it steals from your strength. Wisdom allows you to harness your strength. Wisdom allows you to harness your strength. When you live your life with intention, you find your strength, and every time you strike an axe, you unexpectedly get stronger. The warrior trains for the unexpected moment. They know that life is unpredictable, yet they are undaunted by this reality, for they cannot plan what life will bring. They know they are prepared for it. They have sharpened their iron against the iron of others. They have taken the time to sharpen the edge of their axe. There are certain markers you can look for to know you're chopping at the right tree. Some of them are more concrete, and some of them are more intuitive. One marker is who you are as a person. Your gifts, your talents, are at least a starting point for which battles are yours to fight or yours to walk away from. When you lack the natural gifting to do something, even when you care about it, you will always find yourself at a deficit. You have to look in the mirror and ask yourself the hard question: what was I created to do? Was I created to do this? A good follow-up question to ask yourself is, am I prepared to do this? You may have the natural talent, but you haven't paid the price to develop the skills necessary to succeed. You may have the natural talent to be a neurosurgeon, but I don't want you in my head unless you have taken on the discipline of becoming a highly skilled medical professional. This may mean that it's the right tree, but the wrong timing. There are battles you will fight later in life, but right now it's boot camp and you're still in training. Another marker to help you know if you are spending your strength in the right place is your passion and energy. If you are passionate about the process and not just the outcome, that's a marker that you are on the right track. If you are energized by the hard work and not simply its promise of success, that's a great marker that you are chopping at the right tree. Boy, this book is speaking to me. Is this speaking to you? Wow. An external marker can be the impact that your actions have on others. You may get sick every time you are invited to be a public speaker, but the influence you have on the audience is undeniable. Oftentimes, I have seen highly talented people who are terrified by the callings that are on their lives. And the only thing that keeps them swinging the axe is a sense of responsibility for the good that is being accomplished in the lives of others. This, for me, is one of the most altruistic and noble reasons to be motivated to create wealth. For some, their responsibility is not simply to have a job, but to create jobs. It's not enough to simply gain wealth. They must create wealth so that the welfare of others is affected by their work. In the end, everything we do should ultimately be measured by how much good is done for others. Although life may not have yet brought you wealth or a position or power, there is no poverty that can stop you from fulfilling God's intention for your life when you are walking in wisdom. This is why it matters who you walk with as well. When you choose to live your life in concert with others who are willing to pay the high price of pursuing the greatest challenges and developing their full potential and capacity, it shapes who you are. Lean in to those who refuse to leave you the same. Stay close to those who see you as more than you are in this present moment. Never forget that the rebuke of a friend is of greater value than the kiss of an enemy. Wisdom knows that the way of the warrior cannot be walked alone. And while you may find yourself at some point to be a solitary source of hope needed to bring an entire city freedom, the wise know that wisdom was never gained alone. They also know that we were never meant to do life alone. Solomon reminds us 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. And if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. It's somewhat ironic that these words from Solomon are almost exclusively quoted at weddings, when the actual context for saying these words have nothing to do with marriage. The context is actually about a man who has gained immeasurable wealth but finds himself without either a son or brother. He comes to the end of his life and realizes that his wealth is of no value because he has lived his life alone, disconnected from others. Life, Solomon reminds us, is filled with unexpected twists and turns, and with all we do not know about the future, we can become certain of is that there will be struggles, challenges, and battles ahead. Life is a great quest, but even the hero knows it should not be faced alone. While the warrior is invisible, they know that in the eyes of those that matter, they are fully seen. Fame's great illusion is that you are known by the masses. Fame's great danger is to be known by no one. The warrior does not need a crowd. They need a tribe. Though the warrior seeks to be invisible, they know that in the eyes of those that matter, they are fully seen. The warrior knows that wisdom gives them power of invisibility. And I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to pick up on code 3 in the next video, chapter 3. The warrior finds honor in service. I'll keep it even. I don't want to start going into the 3rd chapter and then stop again on this video. So we'll stop. We just finished code 2 and we will start code 3 in the next video. I hope you are enjoying this. I sure am. I think the way he writes is brilliant. I think he can teach us a lot of things. And he does use the biblical approach to his writing, which I think is amazing. So with that being said, I'll let you go. I might be back with another video later on a different topic. We'll see. I'm not sure. If I have a thought in my head and I need to get it out, I'll let you know. Okay. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight and reading this book together with me. So, or listening to me read this book to you. So thank you. I appreciate it. And I will see you on the next video. Bye.